Hello and welcome back to the Cartoonist Studio, where we really are talking about the Cartoonist Studio this week. It's not just a word, the Cartoonist Studio. This is it. This is where I spend a vast majority of my life. And to give you some kind of context, my studio is on the third floor of my house. And I live in a very beautiful part of the UK. It's in the Brecon Beacons area of Wales, so it's like mid-Wales. And out of my studio window, I have an immediate view is of a private school. And I've mentioned that in the past, but beyond that, you can see the Black Mountains and so on and so forth. So it's very, very beautiful, ever-changing, very dramatic scenery. So yes, this is it. So today's video is about me going through my studio tour, talking about the materials that I use. So without further ado, we'll go behind me to that section first, and then we'll come back here, and then we'll go over there, and we'll probably wind up over there. Okay, you ready for that? Let's go. Okay, this is where, well, actually, this part of the studio has a dual purpose. The first purpose is it's for my YouTube videos. So I have the drawing board, simple, straightforward drawing board. I think this is an A2, I would say, just over A2. It's just propped up on two books, a dictionary and a book called Blood Feud, which is about the Anglo-Saxons and how if someone upset one of them, the whole family was upset before you realise it, the entire country was up in arms. So that's the story about that. So those two books give me the perfect angle and height for me to draw at. So there you go. And then there's this here, which is a telescopic arm thing. You can make it up higher, lower, higher, whatever I do. The camera or the phone goes on there, and then it just points directly down, and I do the drawing, and that's how you see my hands moving. So that's how it's done. So when you see me doing the YouTube videos, me drawing stuff, you know the setup. This is what it is. Quite straightforward and simple, shall we say. So and then when that's finished, remember this falls apart again. That's it. Comes out like so. Oh, this is a hell of a game, this is. It used to be a game I did before. That's right, there we go. Then that gets shoved in there. And that goes in there. And it's done. Ta-da! Done. Right, so that's the first purpose of it all. Then the second purpose is, and I'll bring it to you now, computer, which is where I do the colouring for my graphic novels. Any cartoon work that needs colouring that isn't a watercolour gets put onto here. And I liked it. I've never seen one like this since or before. It's completely white. I love it. I also write my novels and book ideas and anything else that pops into my head. So that's there. That's for that. Up here, well, there's the two books that I use to prop up the drawing board. Just some idea. If I ever get a few moments, I like to do code words. They're great. If you don't know what code words are, if you don't know what code words are, look them up. They're great fun. I love them. Just books on words. I love words. Few of the books that I've produced are up there. You know them all. I've mentioned them. I've marketed them. And there are universal links in the description below for those. And then up here is my pile of broken dreams, I guess. Well, not completely, because this here, the top there's an example of a greeting card that I did, or a range of greeting cards that I did about sheep. And they're not plays on words or anything else like that. They're just jokes based around sheep. I did a bunch of them, and I put them out into some shops, and they sold out. So they're very, very popular. Unfortunately, I've lost the artwork for them, so I'm redrawing them, plus I'm doing a few more, and I'm putting those out. They will be for sale at some point in the future, so I'll let you know about those. But the broken dreams bit is ideas that I've really gone on with, got quite deeply into, and then for one reason or another, I stopped. So of course, it causes frustration. I may go back to them, I may not. I'm still sort of working it out in my own head. I'm stewing it over whilst I'm doing other stuff. It's on the back boiler, I think, is what they say. So I'll just show you what I mean. These are at stages like this, partly inked, some of it in pencil, quite a lot in pencil actually. That's Brabbles and Boggett, and then just some paper. And then we go on to Castle Comics, which I'd redrawn, or in the process of redrawing. So you can see I'd gone quite far into it. There was a lot there, an awful lot there. And I'm loath just to leave it die, but I may have to. Only time will tell. Then up on here, I think you've seen these. This is one of the pages for Winston, which was it's a comic that I'm sending out to the European market of France, Belgium, possibly Holland, maybe more, depending on who I can find. So I'm trying to send those out. So the reason why it's over here and not over at the drawing board is it's a kind of a process that I go through. I draw it there, I put it here. Psychologically, that's now ready to go out the door. So it's a flowing system, shall we say. A psychological flowing system. I feel better. I feel things are moving in the right direction. So that's that. And there's another idea here, which is not far off completion for the American syndicate market. And I'll show you again what they are. Ignore the green bit there. I've got a bit of paint on that. That'll come out in Photoshop. But these are a collection of single panels. They're going to be slightly different because although they've got the borders all the way around them, I'll be cutting borders out and it'll look a little bit different to your average syndicated single panel. So there you go. I think they're 4 cartoons off completion. So they're, once again, neither Winston or the cartoon strip are completed, but the completed pages are ready to go when everything else is finished. And then finally on here, that's my printer and scanner. Printer doesn't work, don't know why. Scanner does. It's an A4 scanner. I don't have an A3. I may at some point, I really don't know. But at the moment, it's just the scanner. Now this here is my ideas file. Any decent idea. I get lots of ideas and I jot them down on paper. There's stuff, there's a notebook here, that's right, yeah. I jot them down and things like this, and if I think it's got legs, it goes into here. Not everything in here gets drawn up and sent out, but a lot of the stuff in here does, and there's a few projects in there, so this is all my ideas. I mean, you'd love to know what's in there, and all I can really say is this is where Winston started. It's where the cartoon, the single panel cartoon started. I have got a name for it, but I just don't want to mention it just yet. And I've got 2 children's comic ideas. One is called The Really Mad Professor, or The Seriously Mad Professor. Still working on those 2 names. And the one after that is it Captain Alpha and Kid Zero? That's it. Captain Alpha and Kid Zero. That's you're gonna bash your head against a brick wall trying to work out what that one's all about. But I liked it. So there you go. That is this part of the studio. Right. So I suppose now we've gone from the drawing board to here. I guess we're going to go back to the drawing board where I start to explain all my tools of the trade, which I'm sure is something you'd like to see. Right. So we're back over to here. Back over to the drawing board. This is my main drawing board. I used to work on the little one, and I went onto this one. It's changed around a few times, but I've had it since I first went into business as a cartoonist, professionally as a cartoonist. It was a birthday present, and a rather amazing one at that. It was a lot tall. It was a drafting table, and I was getting trouble with my back because my feet weren't touching the floor. They were having to sort of dangle away on this sort of like bar stool thing I had. So a friend of mine who works in metal and everything cut the legs off to suit my height and size, and now it's it's purpose built for what I need. So this is my drawing board. This is where I produce so much of my work on this board. At the moment, we've got another one of the final Winston pages on there. So that's that. The rest of the studio, which is now behind the camera, I'll be putting up a picture now to show you what the setup, and that's to this side of me. So it's to my right. Everything's there, so I'm right-handed, so I can dip my brush in the ink pot, and everything is easily and grabbable. You've got my watercolor section over there with the Merry Christmas box. That was a gift from one of my daughters. She put a load of stuff in there, and it was very, very nice. And I thought the box would make a perfect thing to hold all my watercolor tubes. So that's the reason why it's a Merry Christmas thing over there. Now, we'll go through a variety of things. This one here, which is also a present from, I don't know where that was from now. It's from someone. I don't know who it's from. And so it's got a bunch of pens. The pens I use for lettering and the outlining of the panels, that kind of stuff. And I've got my two brushes. There's the brush that I ink with, and there's the other brush that I use for the solids. When I do the solids, normally the solids are done in Photoshop, but lately I've been composing the whole page with black solids, so I do it with that brush. So that's my main go-to pot, should we say. You have to excuse the noises in the background if you can hear it. We're coming up to end of school term, and they're going absolutely bonkers out there at the moment. This one here, just a whole bunch more pens. I think they're leftovers, ones I don't use that much, but I still might use in the future, so I keep those there as well. Then there's my dip pen. My daughters again. I love your daughters. And I think I've done a video on them. These were bought for me as a lovely Christmas present, and I think they're called cartoon pens, and they're all sorts of different nibs. I've used them on a couple of the What If I Drew. Notably, I did it on the What If I Drew BC. So if you want to go and look at that video, you'll see me going through these pens. But they're various thicknesses and sizes. But I suppose a mapping pen is the main one to do the lines, but you can't get the thick and thin lines very well with that I like to use. So I don't do that much. That's the Gilliatt 303 nib, the one I've drawn a lot of cartoons with. If you see my graphic novel, The Night of the Village Idiots, half of it was drawn with a pen and the half of it was drawn with a brush. First half pen, should we say. So that's that. And then pretty much last but by no means least is my collection for my watercolors. Now, I've often said to people, you only really need a few brushes. But if you speak to most artists, we have 1,000, of which we pick about 2 or 3. That was a recent acquisition. Just makes it a lot more easier to do the large washes in the background. So, it looks like a household paintbrush, but believe you me, the bristles are a much, much better design. This was a brush you can see at the bottom there. Never put your brushes in like that for obvious reasons, but this is not used anymore. So I've sharpened the edge, and that helps me just scrape things off there, make blades of grass and whatever. So that's just a technique stick. Normally use for the smaller ones, really, and a few of the larger ones for the bigger areas. It's hit miss. If I'm drawing something and I look at it and I go with the brushes, I think, oh, I'll have that. That'll do me fine. So there's my brushes, watercolor, and a couple of rolls of tape. I use this one because it's a low viscosity tape, so it doesn't tear the page when I finish doing all the colouring. I tear it off to give it a nice clean border. It doesn't rip it quite so much as these do, but there you go. And then I got this monster here. Now I've got these mainly because I want to do a bit of acrylic. I've had an attempt to, you can tell by the discoloration on the brush there, as opposed to that nice crystal white. So I've got a lot of these brushes here, various in varying, shall we say, springiness and harshness. They're quite soft. These are a bit tougher. So so those are my brushes. for acrylics when I get round to it. But they're at the drawing board anyway because, hell, they look nice. Now, this little thing, you may have noticed it, I don't know. A little piece of soap. What I use that for is when I'm doing masking tape, masking fluid when I'm covering a character. This is very, very good because you get the brush. I'll just use any of these as an example. I wouldn't normally use this because you use a brush that is almost was at the end of its usefulness, because when you put masking fluid on it, you can never really use it again for watercolors. So you dip the brush in water, you then dip that into the soap, so it forms a film. You then dip that into the masking fluid and put it over your picture. The masking fluid still goes onto the page, but it doesn't penetrate all the bristles, which means when you wash it off, your brush should be still okay. So there you go. Soap and a brush. Right, I think that's pretty much this part of the studio. Obviously, there's my angle poised lamp here, if you can see that. There it is. And there's the tray down here that's got an assortment of little bits and pieces that I use. This thing here is called a linen tester. My father gave me this when he was a printer. It's just if you're doing very, very fine detail work, which I don't do a huge amount of, that goes on the page and you look down through the telescopic thing. So that's for very, very fine detail work. Like I said, I don't do a great deal of it, but my dad had it throughout his printing business, and he gave it to me. So I keep it. And there are a few rolls of kitchen roll, which are just there to mop up the watercolor when I'm doing the various pictures. Right, so that is I guess, the main business end of the studio. Now we'll go over to the reference section, and well, not reference, and that'll be explained when we get over there. Now this, I'd like to say, is my reference section, but it isn't really reference. It's, over the years, I've collected a lot of books, tons of books. This is just a small cross section of it. There's a load downstairs. There's a cubby hole in my bedroom, which is jam-packed with them. And before that, for many years, I had a huge, massive box full of really, really old collectibles. And sadly, I no longer have them. But this is, I don't know what it is, because it's not inspiration anymore, because I don't need to learn from the masters so much anymore. I'm a professional and know what I'm doing. But maybe it's a little bit of nostalgia. Like, for argument's sake, we have here Asterix the Gaul. Now, Asterix I studied as a child because of his action, and took an awful lot for that. So, but I enjoyed the story. So over the years, I've collected them. And then there's Lucky Luke, which is another, it's a French-Belgian cartoon, and he was another great inspiration. I loved his storytelling and the simplicity of his art. I've got a whole bunch of French artists, Tintin, The Goof, a whole bunch of stuff. Then we have here another big inspiration for a lot of people, which is the Bone collection. I bought the one, loved it, and just bought everything. Just bought absolutely everything by him. So I had that. And then a variety of some little Mad magazine books, the Mad collections. This was Jack Davis. I think there's Wally Wood, and there's Bill Elder in there as well. A load of stuff by, we got there, Will Eisner. A lot of stuff by Will Eisner. So that's more the sort of graphic section, shall we say, graphic storytelling. Here, these were given to me, actually given to me, and it's the Calvin and Hobbes, the complete comic strips of Calvin and Hobbes. I got that because I just had to have it. Calvin and Hobbes, what can I say? And then further up here, these are the cartoon collection. Well, some of them are cartoon collections. But you got stuff like this, which I absolutely love. Dennis, it's called Dennis in the UK. He has to be, because we had a cartoon character called Dennis the Menace, and he actually predates America's Dennis by only a short period, but enough of it to claim the rights to it. So in America, he's Dennis the Menace. In the UK, he's Dennis. But this is a biography of Hank Ketchum, uh, Dennis's extremely talented creator. Lovely story. If you have not read it, go and get it. It's well worth it. And there's also another similar type thing on another huge inspiration of mine, Johnny Hart and BC. Loved that. Loved his humour. Loved his gag writing. The way he sort of put these things together. It was absolutely perfect. There's a few. No, it's not that one. There's a few webcomic ones. When webcomics were very popular and I wanted to do one, I loved this guy. He was absolutely brilliant. Like Sheldon, it was called, about a 14-year-old billionaire. He created some computer software, made a fortune, and he'd managed to get a voice thing into his pet duck, and the duck could speak. So I collected a few of those. I enjoy those. I think they're still out there. I think he's still producing. Let go. I'll put it in there for now. I think he's still producing them. I think it's still a webcomic, and it was very good. He did another one as well, which was more for science fantasy fans or science fiction. Is not my thing, but it's very good. It's very popular. It's very well done. Here we go. More book collections. This one, Beetle Baby. Now, I never rated Mort Walker. I thought all right. Here's my view. It's a bit of a chance that I got lucky because he's not funny. But his art is an absolute masterclass in on how to produce a comic strip. It is an absolute masterclass. It's clear, it's concise, it's to the point. And the idea was a great one of an army camp. He once said that it doesn't matter where you set it. It could have been in a shopping centre. It could have been a factory. It could have been anywhere. It's just a group of people, and they were great characters, but they were beautifully drawn. But like I said, I never rated him very much humour-wise. And then, of course, there's Hagar, who I did rate extremely highly. So I got a few more of those. And The Wizard of Id, I never rated that very highly either. But, it's a classic. And I've got the whole Peanuts collection of these books. No, up until 1990, downstairs. So that's great. And the rest of it is just a mixture. I will quickly show you this one. This was a British cartoonist, a political cartoonist who was never harsh on anyone. His humour was gentle, but it was brilliant. And his name was Giles, Carl Giles. We share the same name, but that's about as far as it goes. And he is an absolute institution. Sadly, he's no longer with us. He's been gone for quite a while. But he drew the British people like Norman Rockwell drew America. Giles drew the British people from, I'd say, the 1940s up until 1990, I think, but his heyday was in the 60s and the 70s. He just got the British public, and he had a family which he regularly drew. And every year, every father in the country would get a Giles annual for Christmas. And what it was, as soon as I was old enough, I bought my dad a Giles annual, and we'd go and see my uncle and aunt in the evening for the Christmas evening of their house. My uncle also had his Giles annual, and when Dad finished with this, I had it, and I pored over it, and I studied it because it was just beautiful. Go online, look up Giles, and you'll see all the cartoons. No one could draw snow like Giles. Look at Giles and snow, something else. And there's my Mad collection. Sergio Aragonés, or how you pronounce that, Don Martin, possibly one of the most original cartoonists in the world. I will have a crack at what if I drew Don Martin one day. Dave Berg, once again, not my most favourite part of the Mad magazine, but got to give him his due. Staying power, he was in there every month with those gags. And then Mort Drucker, best caricaturist the world has ever seen in that format. The most obscure cartoonist is, once again, it's another British one, and that's Gerald Scarfe. Get a chance to go and see some of his stuff going up because he's the most vicious caricaturist in the world. I mean, if you had a nose that was slightly long, if that was the piece of his paper, the head would be up here and the nose would be out there. I mean, he really took you to pieces, and they were recognisable as well. he drew Margaret Thatcher as a pair of scissors. And it was her. You still knew it was Margaret Thatcher. Very, very talented. So this is my part of my book collection. And down there's more sort of, it's a collection of fantasy books. I like folklore, mythology, that kind of stuff. It fits in very well with my love of history. And strange enough, one of the oddest books I've got is that one. Considering I rate him that much, you have to admire what he did, or how he managed to survive that long in cartoons. But he's very much a me person. Everything's about him. He'd probably do quite well on YouTube. I know he's sat in no longer with us, and it's not very nice to speak ill of the dead, but in all honesty, if anyone has known me, they've always known I've always said that about Walt Walker. I've never rated him. Some people are just in the right place at the right time. Calvin and Hobbes, in the right place at the right time, but he was brilliant. Walt Walker, I think he literally, comics were starting to evolve, and he just happened to be in there at the beginning and grew. Some people have different opinions. That's absolutely fine. It's just mine. That's that section. This, I will sometimes just sit and be inspired. It gives me ideas. Like these things here are the latest graphic novels. There's Dogman, Ghosts, Bird versus Squirrel, and Bunny versus Monkey. And once again, I don't necessarily rate this one very highly. It's very popular. I just think it's a bit too, in the writing and the drawing is a bit too confused. The panels are a bit too confused. I mean, people like it, so obviously my opinion means nothing. It's just a personal opinion. Dogman, obviously, very badly drawn, but I think it was meant to be that way. But the kids do love it. So these are the things that make me look and think, right, okay, if I'm looking at producing something, then you go to the market leaders. That's not a market leader, but very well done, beautifully done, very nice book. That did give me some ideas. So that's a kind of an ideas section. So there you go. That's that bit. That's inspiration corner, kind of. And we'll just move the camera around slightly whilst I'm still here, and then we can see this little bit, this little section. Make sure that, there you go, it's still standing. This is things that are kind of like nice to me. This is a South African cartoonist that I know. We did a kind of a cartoon swap, and he had one of my cartoon strips. I got one of his cartoon strips. This is published in South Africa. Yeah, Gavin Thompson is the cartoonist, and this thing called TrekNet. He did a few cartoons. It wasn't just TrekNet that he did. This here, original artwork by the creator of a British cartoon institution called Desperate Dan. This isn't Desperate Dan. This is illustrations of Desperate Dan's son. And if you can make it out, he's bending an old gas lamp, street lamp, and he's lighting a cigar. This is a baby. Can you imagine that nowadays? Oh my God, the world could be in meltdown. But in those days, it was just seen for what it was, just silly humour. Kids didn't smoke, of course they didn't, and that's what made it ridiculous. He was meant to be a tough kid, so he smoked a cigar. And so it was all part of the image and what have you. So that's original from, I'd say, I don't know, maybe 30s or 40s. So I got that, framed it, loved that. This was a gift. I love Laurel and Hardy. I love all the black, well, a lot of the black and whites. Laurel and Hardy, Charlie Chaplin. It's quite a few of them I like, but these two idiots were just brilliant. And me and my youngest daughter, we used to sit and watch. I didn't think the kids nowadays would get it, but she sat there and watched it with me, and she roared with laughter. And every now and again, we send each other video footage, snippets of these two idiots, and we're laughing again. We're back to when she was a little kid sat on my lap watching this on a Saturday afternoon. So I love them, but the beauty of that is you can't really see them, but there's two frames from their actual movies in there as well. So that's nice. And this one, that's my nan and granddad. That's himself. I mentioned Bob. I did a video on drawing a great Irishman, and that's himself. That's Bob Dixon, and my wonderful grandmother as well. She was. I mean, he was such a character. Anyone who's with a character tends to look not so stellar, shall we say? But she was the quieter one, but she was a wonderful grandmother. Such a she'd hold you, she'd pick you up, and everything in the world just disappeared. You just enveloped in her love. She was such a wonderful person, such a lovely grandmother. My granddad, 6'4" or something like that, whatever it was. I mean, she's quite tall if you think about it. He's 6'4". She's, for the era that she lived in, she was tall. But he's the one who I'd sit on his knee and he'd tell me all these wonderful stories of the little people and all the ghost stories of Ireland and all these great things that the Irish tell stories. And he was a great storyteller. So that's my wall of fame and infamy, I guess. Yeah. And this is just a little cubby hole. It used to be where the hot water tank was put. But when we had the central heating done, it was taken out. Just this hole was left. They said, what do you want us to do with it? I said, I don't know. Can you put some shelves up there? And they said, yeah, no problem. So in they came, put the shelves in, and that's that. So here is just, well, I say it's junk. It's not junk. It's the stuff that I don't use that much. So for argument's sake, I've got all this, which is my acrylics, if you like. And I haven't really mastered. I don't do acrylics. I don't work in acrylics, but I quite like to do it one day. So I bought a whole load of basic starter stuff. And here's another little thing. I'll put this down here now. This is my portable watercolor kit. Once again, haven't used it yet, but there it is. I'd like to go out and do some open air stuff if we ever have a nice day. So there's that as well. And I'd say, yeah, that's just pretty much it. And there's some terps in there, which fits quite nicely into my oil painting. Once again, never done oils, but one day I'd like to. So it's there. Actually, no, that's the oils. This is my watercolor pencils, or some of them. They were Derwent's watercolor. Derwent's is a town in the Lake District in the north of England, and they produce these wonderful quality watercolor pencils. You rub them on the page, and then you add water to it, and you can mix them with other colors, and it acts like a watercolor, only a little bit more concentrated, not so much blobby stuff, should we say. Just some papers which I'll go into later on, pads of watercolor paper, old sketchbooks down there. I tried to be a proper artist and keep a sketchbook, but I can't. I just got bored, so I stopped doing it. And then up the top here, these are all, I've got some down here actually. These are gag writing books. When I used to do the Adam and Eve cartoons, which I mentioned earlier, I think. So these were them, and I would go out, either take the car out somewhere and sit in a lay-by and write them, or go for a walk, or if it was quiet in the house, I'd sit here in the house and write a few jokes. I'd jot them down in my book and use them for the next week's cartoons. But I don't do that cartoon strip anymore, but I did keep the books. Bit of a hoarder that way. And that's pretty much it. Oh, there's this. I don't know if you can see that, you can make it out, but it's a castle. That was made by Steph's son-in-law. It was a Christmas present to me. He knew I loved medieval history. So he's not British, he's Bulgarian. They don't have the same medieval history that we have over here. But he researched it and he found a castle and he built one for me. And so, although it looks like it's hidden away, it's not hidden away. It's up there because it's in direct line with my drawing board and I can always see it. There's nowhere to put it out constantly here because, well, there's just no room. I'd be falling over it. Like I say, it's a decent-sized studio, but it's not big enough to have stuff just sitting in the middle. I didn't want it downstairs where I wouldn't see it all the time. Here, I spend a lot of my time. Here, I can see it a lot. So it means a lot to me. That's where it is. So thanks, Nick. There it is. Right. That's that. Yes, on to the next stage. Right, I guess now another very important bit is the paper I use. Now, largely when I'm doing a lot of my cartoon comic strips or comics pages, things like that, graphic novels, or even commission cartoon work, I tend to work on this, which is a heavy cartridge paper. Daler-Rowney Smooth Heavyweight. I use that, but I also used to use, and I've now gone back to using, another Daler-Rowney, but a Bristol board. It's just smoother paper, particularly for the brush, not so much for a pen. So I've got the both. It depends how I feel. That's a lot quicker to work with because it's just smoother and the ink runs on faster. And this is cheaper and it's still expensive, but it's cheaper, should we say. So those are the two things I use for comic book work, single panel cartoon work, comic strips, anything like that, anything that's going to go out to publications and whatever. I tend to use that cartridge paper. It is a nice paper. It's still very smooth, not as smooth as a Bristol board, but still quite smooth. Now, from there, we go on to watercolor. A lot of my watercolor paper, I buy these big blocks. And once again, it's a Daler-Rowney. I'm not sponsored by Daler-Rowney. I wish they bloody well would. I wish someone would sponsor me. Anyway, Daler-Rowney is what I use. This is once again a very heavyweight card, almost card, I'd say. And I use it for my private caricature work and anything else really. I mean, when I do the YouTube videos, the few I've done on watercolors, it's been this one. It's A3. Normally, when we in this country, we get our paper oversized. Now, I'm not too sure whether it's oversized for us or whether it's just standard for America. I don't know, but it tends to be a little bit bigger than A3, a little bit bigger than A4, and so on and so forth, all the way up the paper sizes. But these ones are actually cut to our standard A3. Decent sized piece of paper. Don't need any more than that. And then I have Langton, which is another Daler-Rowney. I had no idea I used so much Daler-Rowney. I thought I used other stuff as well, but Daler-Rowney seems to be the thing. And I'm pretty sure that all of my watercolor paints are Daler-Rowney. I think I just like them. They are good. They do good products. I have a much larger one of these as well, but exactly the same thing. It's just a different weight paper, that's all. So that's the paper that I use for my commercial work. And also for my own private stuff as well, my own private watercolor. If I'm in a landscape or if I'm working on a thing at the moment, which is cartoons in watercolor, and it's still working on it, but I'll use the bigger paper for that. More on that as and when it sort of progresses and I'm happy enough with it to share it with you. So I guess that's the paper. And when it comes to sketching and what have you, I just use normal photocopier paper, the stuff you can get over here, WH Smith's. I'm not too sure what they are around the rest of the world, but it's just like a large chain store of stationers. So that's the paper. Yeah, there you go. Okay, so I guess that's kind of it. I hope you enjoyed the studio tour. I hope you enjoyed seeing what I use. I haven't gone through it all because there's so much stuff here. I mean, if you look towards the window, you can see there's a load of things, I guess. And these are things that I've either collected or have been given to me over the years. And yeah, there's other things that were on my drawing table. There were some coloured pencils, and they're fairly self-explanatory. They're coloured pencils. Yeah, so that's that, and hope you enjoyed it. Next time, I think, not quite sure, but I think I'm going to be doing a cartoon which is talking about whether to use a brush or a brush pen and the various effects you can get from the one and you may not be able to get with the other. I don't know because I haven't done it yet. It might be a complete mess. And it might be something completely different. I don't know. Only time will tell. Right, so I'm going to be getting back on with my page of artwork, and I will see you in a fortnight. Thank you for, oh, actually, yes, before we do go, I was reading a book and they were talking about YouTube channels and how to make your YouTube channel grow. And apparently the one thing that gets more and more people hitting the subscribe and like button is pictures of mushrooms. Don't ask me why, I have no idea. So, for the sake of science, here's some mushrooms. Yeah, I hope you like that. Now let's see what happens with that. Right, okay, that aside, thank you once again for coming along and spending a little bit of time with me. It's always great to have you here. Hope to see you again in a fortnight. Until then, bye bye for now.